that one. Take two for Peterson.
That was a better breath. That was a Grady flat. That was locked in.
That's good. Hi, I'm Steve Peterson.
And I am Jack Hinkle.
No, you're not Steve Peterson. Welcome back to Chops Podcast, where we talk about motorcycles, cappuccino, and candy corn. Today, we're also talking about best practices. Burp, give me that. Okay, we're talking about kids. We're talking about knowing your students, knowing your content, and knowing your teaching.
That's what they say. That is what they say.
So it's October Eve.
It's hoodie season.
It is hoodie season. And tomorrow is October 1st. Doesn't it feel like finally?
Yeah, in some ways, September's felt like one really long day, and it's just like taking forever. But in some
I
ways,
felt like September was just a continuation of the summer. It was like a
Yes.
continuation of band camp. It was like,
well, you told the kids today, you're like, we're in our postseason now, and I'm like, oh my God, what happened?
yeah,
I mean, it went very slow and very fast all at the same time.
yeah,
I'm glad.
yeah.
I'm ready for October.
Rocktober.
Rocktober. That's it. That's it. Okay, Steve.
Speak of Jack.
You've probably had some moments, and I know you have because I've seen them in your classroom as a student.
You saw me? Oh, as a student. Ooh.
As a student.
Okay,
No,
go ahead.
that you.
When you were a student,
I
or
think
when I was a student, you were.
I haven't seen you.
You were a
I
twinkle in
was
God's eye when I
not
was a
alive
student,
when
yeah.
you were a student. No, but you've probably had some moments, and I know you have.
Where I've wanted to run out of the classroom screaming. Yes.
And yes, you have. You have, for better or for worse.
Yes.
And I can think back to some really funny moments
Mm-hmm.
that you handled really well. You're like, where's this going, Jack? That you've handled really well when you were like frustrated. And the only reason I knew you were frustrated as a student was because like you let us know in like a funny way,
Okay.
right? Like
Okay.
I like to think that I don't like to think. I think you were good at making sure that the only emotions you displayed were the ones you wanted your students to see.
Dang. Really?
That's my memory as like a
Okay.
14 to 17-year-old.
Okay, good. I faked you out.
Got me.
Sucker!
Got me.
Got him!
Yeah, now that I'm on the other side, it is kind of funny because now that, we all co-teach right now, I think we can all tell each other's emotions,
Yes.
right? Like pretty well. I mean, the kids can't, but we have worked together long enough that like you kind of know what's going on, right?
Yes.
So you've had some moments in your teaching career when you're frustrated. Shocking, right?
Yes.
But a lot of things you handled well.
Yes.
Have there been times? Oh, this is like hot. Is this hot take? Hot take possibility that you knew you had to teach something, and you knew that you were not going to be able to teach it to a student or the class. You just knew it was like a failing task going in, and you're like, well, I'm gonna roll up a sleeve, see what we can do.
Yes.
Does that happen multiple times a year?
Yes.
Does that happen multiple times a day?
Well, now that I don't teach as much, probably doesn't happen as much as it used to.
Okay.
I'd say the spectrum of students, like the spectrum as far as like their musical knowledge and what they come in with, is a little bit more cohesive compared to like having maybe music theory. There's a fly in this room.
Dude, I've heard it buzzing on the windowsill. It was like,
Music theory or piano class,
mm-hmm.
right? So, and since I don't teach as many classes, I don't have as many moments of that. But I think I felt that. Well, I know I felt that. I think when I feel it, okay, there's two times that I feel that. Like that, is it? Wait, ask the question again. What are you talking about?
Speaking of impossible tests, sorry. No, when you know you have to teach something that the kids aren't going to get, and maybe it's a class, maybe it's an individual, and it's not necessarily, maybe it's your fault, or maybe it's just the content is just going to be really over their heads.
Yeah. Okay, content they're not going to get. Okay, my fault. I felt that way a lot last year with AP Music Theory. As we got into the home stretch, where I was trying to wrap up things and try to tie up the package and then look ahead more towards the test and just review, and I just realized some of the heavy lifting we had to do in music theory, they couldn't. Some of them, enough of them, could not do the heavy lifting. Where I was like, I have failed them. I did not give them the beams and the boulders and the nuts and the screws. And I was like, dang it.
Okay, you need to come into my class more and like kind of keep me bumpers in the bowling alley and be like, Jack, no, you got to do this more. You came in there to mess with the amp, and I was like, oh, is he gonna?
No,
I was like, oh, he's out of there.
I came into Jack's class today, and everybody was like, looked like they were worshiping the TV. It was like they were all like in a semicircle.
They're teenagers.
And then like the first thing Jack was doing is they were singing solfege, but they weren't singing solfege. They were chanting solfege.
We're chanting.
So they're
solfege.
going do so do re mi la la fa ti do, like all this, and I was like, man, those guys stink.
Oh, you thought we were trying to sing?
Yeah. And he was just doing it like to get the syllables of the solfege
That's
correct
funny.
and the rhythm, and then.
Okay, so it's a good thing that was not one of my official observations.
Yeah. Then they were back on it, and I was like, oh, I got it. Jack is in the scaffolding pond again.
Scaffold pond. Population AP theory.
Okay, so yes, I've had that. But then also so that would be an example of students not ready to go with the content at hand because it was not built up for them correctly. The foundation was not stable enough. But then also there's been times that like individually, I can think of like piano class of doing something as fundamental as like playing the 3-note chord, right?
Yeah.
And then like playing the F chord, the 4 chord, back to the 1 chord, and the 5/7 chord, and just like doing these, you really don't have to know anything about music to play chords on the piano.
No.
You're just poking black and white keys with your fingers, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to know the names of
Nope.
them. You don't have to know what notes they are. You don't have to know if it's a major chord. It doesn't matter. Just make the shape and hit it. And watching some kids really struggle with making that shape with their hand, or you have your finger set up on the piano, like I just have my hands set in front of me on the table right now, but okay, now with your left hand, tap your pinky. Now with your right hand, tap your thumb. And watching kids not being able to do that at first kind of gets me a chuckle, but then I just have to walk away. I just like, I can't stay there. I can't stay in scaffolding soup any longer because you don't know the names of your fingers. Right? So
That is
kind of
so
basic
real.
things like that.
Hey, it's your mom.
Hey, Mom.
The zooming motorcycle. That's real. That is really real. And for some reason, the body awareness in piano, and it's not, and this isn't like a kid thing. I think this is for sometimes the first time they've ever had to think like this,
Yes.
where your hands move left to right, not symmetrically in or symmetrically out. And you were really helpful with this with me when I first started teaching. You're like, I do what's
Aw.
called butterfly, and we start with our thumbs and then go out, and then we do butterfly.
I
in.
learned that from a student teacher.
Oh, wow.
Mhm.
Well, I'm glad that happened so I could learn it. And then we do parallel, which your hands move the same direction.
Yes.
And the first time we do parallel, it like blows their mind.
Yeah.
Blows their mind. And right now we're doing the 8-finger pattern,
Okay.
which is synonymous with a C major scale.
Okay.
2-hand. And the first time they have to shift that
Oh,
thumb. You can
man.
think of those days, right, where you're like trying to do this, and we do it like 12,000 times. And the kids are hilarious because they know they mess up. Like they're smart, and they know what they need to do to fix it. And this is what it looks like. They like have their hands out and they go, "No, I messed up. Oh, I messed up. I messed up." And then I'm behind them and I'm like, "Try that again slower." They're like, "Okay. Oh, I messed up." And I'm just like, "No, slower. Like, watch me." And I sit beside them and I like 4 hands on the piano with them. And I'm like, "Okay, now you go." Like, no, stop,
Yeah,
stop,
yeah.
slow. Like, you
Slow.
have to go slow. And some of those kids, like, slow is like a foreign concept, which I get it because they can see the finish line and they know what they have to do to get there and they just want to jump, but like they have to crawl. And it's like painful for them to do it. The thing that I think about, because Steve, this may surprise you, but I too have had times that I have biffed things This may surprise. I don't know.
Like
why I'm
what,
saying
Jack?
that. Okay, the first thing that comes to mind is like pop music that we randomly have to play. Maybe it was like pep band, or maybe it's like a pops tune in Carnival that I look at and I go, we're not going to be able to read this.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like there's like in Carnival is like a good example of this, because this is our spring concert we do is like a full-on music department, and we always end up with some sort of like medley of a movie soundtrack or some pop tunes, and every pop tune has these like really difficult to read rhythms. They're easy to play if you know what it sounds like.
Yes.
But if you have to read it and go from
They're
that,
horrible.
it's horrible. And I mean, I wouldn't be able to sight read it probably the first time. It would take me like a try or two to figure it out. And so the kids are just like, I don't know what to do with this. And, you know, sometimes we see those coming up, and especially with the younger bands, you just are like, okay, we're going to get out the pencils and we're going to play the first note or the second note. And, you know, you want to give them a shot, and they could get it, but you don't always have the time in rehearsal to make that stuff happen. So that's what comes to mind in like in an impossible task that you just don't have the resources available. And it's not really a student achievement issue. It's just more about the resources, but you got to make it happen, right?
Yeah.
So that's one that comes to mind, but I too know that I have failed in the setup of certain things in trying to get my students to be successful.
Oh.
You know, like we think about, you know, if you don't do your fundamentals with your kids in any class, in any subject, you're cooked by the time you get to the end of that. And that's an easy thing to do with band. You know, you're trying to get all your notes and rhythms down, and then you can't play in tune by the time the concert comes because you never worked on that because you were so focused on the music, you know? And you know, master teacher Richard Saucedo, right? He says like the closer you get to a performance, the more you need to go back to the fundamentals because you should have the notes and rhythms down.
I must never get close to a performance because I just don't.
Yeah, it is consistently August here in Concord High School.
Okay. Okay, it reminds me of two things. Back to my Kentucky days.
I love the Kentucky stories.
Okay. Okay, I think it both had to do with my second year. My second year, marching band, I thought it would be really wise to design our marching band show based on a musical. Because when you have a musical, you have like a through composed idea.
Sure.
Right? And you may have different styles, but they're kind of compatible with each other. And they can help tell a story. So what musical did I choose? West Side Story.
For those of you unfamiliar, West Side Story, great musical, great soundtrack.
Leonard Bernstein.
Really difficult music.
Ridiculous. And it's like a lot of it's dance music, and there's like some like Latin mambos in there, and there's these ridiculous mambo. Yeah, and it's like all these wonderfully sculpted melodies and all these interesting harmonies and kind of like contrapuntal writing, like many different things going on.
Dude, I'm just imagining like Steve Peterson at Kentucky, or like sitting in his office, like looking at the score. You're like, guys, God, this is gonna be great. You're getting your Gustavo Dudamel on as your like score study. And you're
okay,
like,
well the reason we were gonna do it is because on the spring concert of my first year, we played this medley that was West Side Story. I was like, this is it. I can use this. So we started off with, with Tonight. Right?
Okay.
Then I think I had parts of Cool in there. And then we did Mambo.
Have to do Mambo.
Then we did One Hand, One Heart. Or Somewhere. No, Somewhere. Okay? Okay. So I thought I was being really clever by using a musical. And then I was using music that I already had in the library.
Okay. Oh, nice.
Right.
Frugal.
Okay. But I only had 20 kids in the band, like including the guard. So why would I choose? And I had two percussionists.
You have a jet and a shark.
Why would I try to play a mambo with two percussionists? Why? What? I mean, that music, I had no business playing, even spelling that, let alone writing it. And I wrote the drill for it, and oh my gosh. And I just realized, I was like, that season we did the opener, and then we did mambo, and I don't think we ever got to somewhere.
You were nowhere.
We were nowhere. I don't think we did.
Dude,
that year
is
we
epic.
did 2 competitions that year. And I have no idea what I was thinking. I was just thinking, well, it's good music. It works well together. I had the colors of the Puerto Rican flag and the color guard. I thought that was it. I had these bright pink streamers they used for cool. And they had these big streamers. I thought it was epic. It was so bad. And there was no way it was going to get better. No way. Because it was horribly written. And it was not appropriate skill level. I'd like to say if there's any students out there that were part of that band, I apologize profusely. Then, that was the beginning of my second year. And then the spring of my second year, I took my band to concert band contest, which is humbling. When you take your 16-person concert band and you show up to a large university hall and you put your very small band on the stage in a large university and the band in front of you has 100 people and they're like, do you want us to clear the extra chairs before you perform? I'm like, yeah, because we just look like a problem. We look like the first clarinet showed up out of a 100-person band. So we have to remove this entire stage of chairs. And my cute little band of 2 rows and the 2 percussionists sat there. So what would be the only thing worse to play with a underprepared band of 16 kids, including 2 percussionists? Not only did I choose to program Leonard Bernstein that year, but that spring, none other than Percy Granger. I mean, what a complete fool. What
tune?
It was like country. No. It was like Country Gardens or something.
Okay.
And again, I thought I was being so great and choosing great music for the kids. And finally, and we went to the contest, 3 hours away. Go to this contest, and they, like blew us out of the water with cherry bombs, and just like we're like, not really sure. This arrangement really matches the skills and the instrumentation that you have. It was like fascinating. I was like, I mean, it was so bad. I apologize. I apologize to all those students, and I apologize to my former self.
I just want to say too, like I feel grateful, and I think I feel humbled by your experience because I never had to go through that.
I know, and because you taught with the team immediately, and you had people going, no.
Yeah, it's not that I didn't make mistakes. I just had people watching my back being like, you idiot, stop. Don't do that.
I had no one.
Right.
The closest thing to it was my wife, Kathy, and she'd be like, oh, that's a nice tune. But, it wasn't her job,
Right. And so I'm sure there's probably like a mix of teachers listening right now that either had like a really good support group or a team or something their first couple years, and there are some teachers that are like the lone wolf just on their own, like listening to this on their lunch when they are by themselves because there's no one around,
Yes.
and that's like 2 totally different experiences. And you and I have talked about this before because I felt like I had a slow learning curve, but it was like a steady growth because I had the team. They helped push me and correct me and help me get better. But because I was on a team and wasn't doing everything by myself, I didn't always get to practice the skills.
Yes.
Whereas like you, I think you probably became a better teacher quicker.
I would like to think, but I just sometimes feel like I got worse. But yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying. It is like yours was a controlled burn.
Yes.
And you were very insulated.
Yes.
people helping you. And I felt like that when I came to Concord. There was always people telling me, no, yes, try this, don't do this, ask this or whatever. And so, yes, at that point, and then, social media was not up and running.
Right, yeah. You couldn't talk to band directors from other schools like instantly.
No,
You had
and
to do some
email
digging.
really wasn't a thing.
Right.
And Google wasn't a thing. And it was very hard to, it was just myself. So I was trying to use the skills that I had, 25-year-old skill set with 0 years teaching experience, and then trying those things. So that would be an example, going back to your original question, of something that was kind of futile, but that was based on
user error.
User error.
Or user, I don't want to say immaturity, like your
inexperience.
Yeah, inexperience.
Right.
User inexperience.
Yeah, I mean, I really thought I was doing the right thing.
Sure.
But I just didn't have the capacity to really understand what I was doing or what I was asking. And I finally found, we used to go to these competitions, and there were a lot of small bands that we competed against, a lot of small, tiny bands. If you had a band of 60, it was huge. It was ginormous. Wow, did you see them? Yeah, wow. But I remember I went to this all region band, or what they call it, all festival band. But it was kind of like the people in the southeastern part of the state, like the mountains. They got together, went to a local college, and you'd stay there for 2 or 3 days, and the kids would rehearse, and the band directors would yuck it up in the coffee break room. But there was a young director there who was probably my age, and he had a band similar to mine, and I remember watching him and his band at a local competition that we were in, and it almost brought tears to my eyes out of I'm doing this so wrong. I'm doing it so bad. It was because the band was small and he wrote the music for them.
Wow.
And it was effective. It's I knew totally what they were playing, and it was achievable. And then I remember talking to him at this all region band director gathering, and he was working on Finale on a laptop, which was kind of not quite cutting edge, but the fact that he had a laptop and he could bring it with him at that time was kind of above and beyond. Cool. And I was that's what I want to do. How are you doing that? And so he just took his 4-part writing and wrote it for his band. I was dang it, dude, that is so great. That's so awesome. And I never had those technical skills or that technology skills at the school where I was. And so I didn't get into that. I rewrote a lot of stuff, but, so that was an example of a person that had similar resources as far as the number of kids in the band, but just kind of wrote it. He had figured it out.
Sure. Well, and I would say for young teachers, the instinct when things aren't going well is to work harder. Whether that's being at home on your prep and not on your prep, but prepping at home and making really detailed plans, or really writing the kids when you're in class with them. Whereas this guy seemed to figure out he just needed to work smarter.
Yeah.
And he changed his approach to make it fit those kids. And I think that's hard to figure out even what you need to do to work smarter when you're a young teacher.
Yeah. How do you do that?
Because when you're in college, it's everything is kind of spelled out for you what tasks you need to achieve, right? If you're thinking your sophomore, junior year in college, music ed major, it's you have your to-do list, read this, study this, practice this. And that's, you just can hash stuff out and grind it. When you're a director at a school, a teacher at a school, yeah, you have your lesson plans and your content you want to teach, but trying to figure out how to make your own to-do list and what those tasks need to be to make the kids the most successful can sometimes be really difficult.
Yeah.
I think back to my first couple years, and I was so silly. I remember sitting in my old office on my prep, and I'm wow, I'm all caught up. This is easy. I got nothing to do. This is great. And now I'm dude, I was so stupid. There was so much more stuff I could have done, but I just was so inexperienced. I didn't know what I needed to do.
You don't know what you don't know.
Exactly.
And so that's why it's important to be in contact with other people that do know what they're doing.
Yes.
right?
And that's why like your student teaching experience is like so vital to your success, I think. Like if you have a really good cooperating teacher, you could come out in your first year and do some damage,
Yep.
like in a good way.
Yep.
Like you really could.
Right.
And if you're kind of just there as like another set of hands because your cooperating teacher just wants another warm body, your first few years might be rough because you don't know what you don't know. So fascinating.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. Like, yeah, you don't know what you don't know, and that's where colleagues and professional relationships come in handy. You know, and
Yep.
there's a good part of people in the world that in our country that teach alone, especially like in band, orchestra, and
Yeah.
choir,
That's real.
and they're the music man for grades 5 through 12, right? And so hopefully now in today's age, the communication can be a little bit more, frequent.
Yes.
I used to ask a lot of questions of my teachers here at Concord, but again, it was like a phone call or you ordered a piece of music and it would take 4 weeks to get it.
Yep.
And, it was just a different thing.
I felt like I was in your office like every day after school. I was like,
knew
hey,
you were. I was like, dude, I gotta.
you're like, I have prep to do. I was like, Steve, can you tell me why I taught so bad in fourth hour? Like,
Yeah.
what was wrong? You're like, well, how long you got?
I don't have 2 preps.
Okay, so now we should touch on the other side of this. That is, it's not, if things are an impossible task to teach, but you're doing your job right, and it's just like the students are not going to get this, and maybe you know it going in, or maybe you're discovering it as you continue,
Okay.
and then like, how do you repair that? I before we pressed record, I was talking to you about like a math class. Like, we have standards. We tried to teach, but there's no state test. Unless you're taking AP theory, but
Right.
there's no state test
Right.
for a band. So it's like there is the accountability of performances, but these like other classes, like they have state tests. And like, what do you do if you have a kid that you just know, no matter how hard you teach, how smart you teach, they just may not get it. And we have that every day. I shouldn't say every day. We have that from time to time, and that looks different, whether that's in marching band or piano class or whatever, And sometimes they're meaningless, sometimes they're meaningful. Like for example, we've had some marching band shows that are really, really challenging musically.
Yeah.
And the music that's written, you get it on day one. You go, I know I have kids that will not be able to play this after 4 months.
Right.
And that's not a this year thing. That's not a last year thing. That's just like an all the time thing.
It happens all the time.
It happens all the time. And we have the opportunity where we can do what's called watering down parts.
Yes.
And make some parts easier, and some kids can play the real written part, and some kids can play the easier part, and you play them on top of each other. And for better or for worse, it kind of just sounds like the real part.
Right.
But there's not always those smoke and mirror tricks you can do.
Right.
So, you think about piano class, right? And this is something that also happens every year, is that the kids for the first time are trying to read music on a staff, and it doesn't click. It doesn't click. And you reinforce it all the time, and you're kind of doing it by rote with them, where you point at this letter and you go, okay, what note is this? And they say C, but really it's an E. And you go, no. Go back 2 letters because it's 2 away from me. And they go B. And you go, no. Go back 2 letters, it's 2 away from me. And they go D. And you go, no. And then, they eventually get it, but it's kind of that same process every time.
So then it makes you wonder, maybe it doesn't make you wonder, maybe it does, I don't know. What could you say to help that student be more successful quicker?
I do think about that. The quickest thing is to say, no, that's C. See? It looks like C. That's where C is. But then they're not getting better. They're just getting successful quicker.
So, I mean, that kind of situation has happened multiple times. Like, okay, press the 2 black keys on the piano. Now press the white key to the left of it. And they press the wrong one. And then I try to think about, how can I say this so economically and so clearly that the student will get it? And then I say it, and I say it again. And then it's not it. And I'm just like, gosh, I wish I had the special sauce, the magic formula to do that.
It is so interesting because there's some things, ahead of time, we know the kids are really going to struggle with, and we know it's a simple concept like where's middle C, but we also know it's so important, and we know that they're going to mess it up, and we know how to phrase it so they do. And you and I have our tricks with that, you know? Give me a peace sign. Look at the black keys. There's 2s and 3s. Put it on 2s.
Mm-hmm.
Point to your left. There's a white key to the left of your middle finger. Press that. And it's like, you know, it's all these things that maybe, you know, if you work like a desk job with adults, these are something you would never think about, of how delicately you have to explain something. And I've talked about this before. It's why adults are really bad at sharing sharing instructions to board games. It is like so painful to listen to adults explain a game.
Yes.
Because they don't know where to start, and they just
yeah.
they've never had to explain something so delicately because of a failure of someone on their team, because they typically can do that. But that's our whole job, and that's something that sticks out to me.
Yeah, I mean, you experience that with marching band, I'm sure, like every day.
Every day,
you're doing choreography,
teaching choreo, dude.
Right?
It's the same
right?
thing.
I mean, to say, you know, we're going to scaffold this and say, okay, we're going to step off with your left foot. 5 kids use right foot. Try it again. Use your other left foot. Okay, good. Now you're going to take your right hand and you're going to point up. No, that's your left hand. Use your right hand, point up, and look at your finger as you point up. And they're like looking straight at you. Look at your finger. They're looking at you. No, look up at your finger. Okay, now you. But trying to create a system where they can be successful, where everybody can be successful.
Yes.
It's very difficult to create that system.
And to quote Stephen Covey,
no boy. Begin with the end in mind.
That's what you have to do. And like, you have to envision as you're teaching that stuff what each step of the way looks like. And how are you going to say it so you can achieve the next step?
I know. That's the difficult thing, is to say it with a sense of kindness and encouragement, and not to let your frustration out or your disbelief. If there are students,
yeah, it's better to show frustration than disbelief.
Wait, you what? You know.
Okay, the classic one. This one's hilarious. Which sometimes in marching band we have to turn. Sometimes it's to the left. Sometimes it's to the right. Sometimes we have to turn during a pose. There are certain poses where your body is only able to turn one direction.
Without ripping your knees.
Without having a torso on the ground next to your legs.
Yes.
Like, there's only one way. And it's fascinating to watch the kids try and go the other way multiple times. It's like your body is telling you, no, stop, no. And the kid's like, oh,
I'm ripping my
spleen. We're going in.
My spleen.
I've always wanted to be in 2 places at once. Here I go.
Right.
And that's one that is where I have to hide the disbelief. I'm like, you can try, but that's not going to work for you. But, okay, did you ever have to we did this in a PD like a couple weeks ago, or maybe it was the end of last year, when our assistant principal, Jeff Petty, came up and had to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. You remember that?
Yeah, that was pretty funny. That was last year.
Which I think every teacher came into that PD, or most, I would say, that has like seen that exercise done before, and they kind of knew. Yeah. Although they kind of like trolled him. A couple of them were like, "You take your finger, stick it directly into the jar, and." Yeah. He's like, okay, and just did it because he was like a total baller about it. But I think of that exercise where you have to give specific directions on how to build a peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
Right.
And I think that's a good tool for teachers.
But if you begin as the teacher with the end in mind, there's no guarantee that the person you're talking to knows what the end is.
Correct.
There's no guarantee.
Because they'll come out and the peanut butter and jelly will be on the outsides. They got a sandwich on the inside.
Right.
And you're like, how did you miss this? This is obviously a sandwich. And the kids are like, what do you mean? This is a sandwich.
I didn't know that. Right? So we're starting with
our end in mind.
Our end.
But we need their end in mind.
Right. What they are perceiving as the end in mind.
And as a new teacher coming fresh out of college, That is something that's really hard to do. I find myself being able to think more like a high schooler and kind of.
I could see that. Go ahead.
Thank you. I'll take that as a compliment.
Okay. You shouldn't, but go ahead. Okay.
That's why you're here. But thinking of how they would think and forecasting the amount of steps and how I should take those steps to getting from A to Z. In college, I came out and I was like, why aren't you getting this? It was That was like my MO. And now I'm like, past Jack, you were so stupid. Current Jack is not far off, but, a little bit better. So that thinking like them and like anticipating what that's going to be, and giving yourself and giving the kids the best opportunity because you have forecasted the amount of stair steps on the scaffolding ladder that you need.
Yeah. Forecasting the stair steps on the ladder of scaffolding. Whew. That's a good one, Jack.
Took 65 episodes.
65.
Yeah. That's what I think.
That's what it's got to be, man. You got to work slow. Got to work smarter. Got to work clearer. Got to use less words. Oh, my gosh. I use too many words when I teach.
That's it.
Oh.
Dude, I'm so hungry.
I know. We got to stop this. Got to go eat. What do you got?
I have a steak sandwich tonight. Switching it up.
From home?
Yep. Pepper jack cheese. Shaved steak.
You put it on the grill?
On the cast iron. That's
okay.
it.
I have chicken thighs that were on the cast iron skillet.
Did you do your Jamaican seasoning?
This is the Martin's brisket rub.
Ooh.
It's chicken, but it's a little salty, spicy.
Yeah. You get the smoky?
Mm-hmm.
That is legit.
And then tomatoes, black beans, and brown rice.
You were so healthy. You're a baller.
That's why I'm in super good health.
Okay, keep those reviews coming in. And I don't mean just the star ratings. Like, write stuff about us if you like us.
I know. Where are you, snarky puppy?
If you don't like us.
Come at me, bro.
Write us anyway.
Come
we don't
at
care.
me.
Review us and rate us on Apple Podcasts.
Apple Podcasts.
Review us and rate us on Spotify.
Yes.
I don't know what you can do on YouTube, but subscribe to us on YouTube. And it's about the same
Go
thing.
to TikTok, Instagram, all that stuff.
Yeah, share our posts on TikTok. We're trying to go ultra mega viral because all we care about is the cash flow and the follower numbers. All we are is an algorithm. That's all we are.
My life is an algorithm. Okay, so we're at the end of the episode. For Steve Peterson
and Jack Hinkle.
We're out of here.